sales system specifically, how do you book more calls from LinkedIn? Because you can post all day, but if you're not booking calls, what's the point? Right, Nancy?
Oh my goodness. I mean, isn't that why we're on LinkedIn? We want to make connections that result in doing business.
Right. Exactly. So today we're going to talk about three different things. We're going to talk about how to take the one to many engagements you're doing with your posts and turning them into one to one conversations that lead to sales. We're going to talk about the right way to send connection requests and DMs because there's a lot of wrong ways. There's only a few right ways. We'll talk about those. And then we're also going to be talking a little bit about how to delegate this and how you can delegate it a little bit at the end and all sorts of stuff in between. um, Nancy, can we kick off the conversation here with what the role really is of DMing on LinkedIn? Because I think a lot of people are afraid to do it, right?
I think they're afraid to do it because of the fact that they're on the receiving end of what
Mhm.
I think are a lot of spammy messages. In fact, I just got one I was responding to moments ago, Justin, which,
Mhm.
immediately there was a connection request. It seemed legitimate. And the person asked what I thought was a reasonable question and immediately comes back with, I want to do a demo and buy my stuff. And hence, that's why I think people are reluctant about
Mhm.
using DMs. However, if you have an open heart, you're genuine, and you are truly wanting to develop a relationship, yes, you'd like to do business, but honestly, develop a relationship, there's no reason to be afraid of them. It's what you do when you go to a networking event,
Mhm.
Justin. I'm there to meet people, right? I don't
Mhm.
want to be a wallflower or go to the bathroom or hang out at the refreshment bar. I want to meet people.
Yeah, that's right. That's the point of all of this activity. And there really is a way to start more conversations without being spammy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It starts with the connection request. A lot of people aren't aware of all the different ways, sources you could say, that you can send connection requests. I guess I'll start. The common one is what I do in my business. We use LinkedIn Sales Navigator and we create a list of great prospects or partners for us. And we input that information and then we go through the list together. My VA and I, we look at who's a good fit, who's not. There's various factors we use to do that. And then we can send connection requests. And I don't know what your take is on that, Nancy, but my preference is to not have a first message. Some people have a different opinion about that, and I always like debating people about the value or the merits of having an outbound message or not. But we settled on not sending one, and but LinkedIn Sales Navigator is one source to find great connection requests on one place. Any other sources of good connection requests you've seen, Nancy?
Yes, I want to suggest that you don't need to necessarily purchase Sales Navigator
Yeah.
because in the search bar of LinkedIn itself, it's fairly sophisticated in terms of identifying people you want to connect with. And you can put in industry, you can put in geography, location, and other factors, and actually narrow it down to a reasonable list of, say, hundreds as opposed to thousands and tens of thousands of prospects. And when
Hmm.
you have a reasonable list, now, as you say, you're in a position to send out connection requests. But I'm going to even bypass that more. And instead, I'm going to recommend something that many people are not using to its optimal value: joining groups. Now,
Hmm.
I'm not suggesting that you join the group for purposes of posting in the group,
Hmm.
but for purposes of connecting with other members. Because if I'm joining a group of people in marketing online, it's because we have something in common. And as it turns out, Justin, they actually are a good referral partner for me.
Hmm.
So, and maybe some could be prospects as well. So this is the reason I might join such a group. And so in the search bar in LinkedIn, there's the opportunity to look for groups and to put in different words, keywords, and find groups, join them. And then guess what? You can message everyone in that group individually,
Hmm.
again, please don't spam anyone. Please, please, please. But that is one of the underused ways that you have in LinkedIn without paying any money to connect with people who may be your ideal referral partners or prospects.
Yeah, that I think there's you're talking about DMs. Something that it's reminding me of is this idea, and it surprises a lot of people when I tell them this. You touched on it. When you join these groups and you start building a relationship with folks, and you start your initial connection request and you start a DM, you kick off the conversation. I think a lot of professionals, folks that want to get business from LinkedIn, forget that there's actually a branching point here.
Mhm.
There's not just prospects, there's also partners. And if you look at LinkedIn as a networking tool, I heard somebody yesterday said it very nicely. If you forget the social in the media part of LinkedIn, then you're not making it work for you. Social media, right? But we forget about the social part. We just want to blast stuff out. We forget about the social aspect of it. That's what I'm saying. LinkedIn is a fantastic place to find really good partners. It's actually how I've been able to build my business over the last 2 years as a video guy, is primarily through using DMs to build great relationships with potential partners. And those are some of the simplest yet most effective ways to get my offer in front of more of my clients. Because you might say, well, my clients aren't on LinkedIn. That's fine. But guess what? You have potential partners who are talking to your clients. So why not build more relationships in the DMs with those folks? And honestly, if somebody wants the scripts for that, it's a very simple two sentence script of, hey, I see we share the same audience, would like to connect, worth a chat. That's literally what I say 80-90% of the time with these partnership conversations. And they almost always, it's like an 80% response rate, because who doesn't want to talk with somebody who's complementary to what you do? And those then lead to a sales call, not a sales call, but like a networking call. And then for me, it leads to a call then where I offer them either a part of my podcast or a free video session so they can try it out for themselves, no strings attached. And that builds a ton of goodwill. I forget the name for that effect. When you give a ton of value, but you don't receive any back, people feel like they have to give something back. So that's built over the last 2 years, a solid base of referrals from those partnership conversations. You could use LinkedIn effectively just thinking about partnerships before you even think about leads, but you get leads from LinkedIn. So that's what we're talking about today as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about the law of reciprocity.
That's right.
And you and I both met each other through LinkedIn. I don't know who was the initiator of the first connection request. It really doesn't matter because clearly we went on to, talk to each other
Yeah.
individually. And now we've gone on to realize that, yes, we do serve a similar audience and we serve it in a complementary way. Hence, that's why we have partnered together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in videography, and I use it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it can be repurposed, so it's very helpful. And by the way, do you use video at all when you do your messaging in direct messages?
I
'Cause-
have. I want to do more of it.
Yes.
Actually, fun fact about DMing folks: if you want to come across as really human and really personable, there's two things you can do. You cannot do these on the desktop. You have to use your mobile
Yeah, you have to
phone.
use.
Yeah, the first is you can leave a message using a voice message. It's like a little voicemail feature.
Hmm.
Text messaging, WhatsApp has this where you can hold the record button and it leaves a little voice message for you. You could do the same thing in the DMs on LinkedIn. And then,
Hmm.
like you said, Nancy, you hinted at it. Yes, you can do the same thing with video. And nice thing is it allows you to review the video before it goes out. So you're not beholden to whatever you record,
Hmm.
which can be a little nerve wracking.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's extremely good for someone to get to know you quickly versus just a simple message that they don't know whether it's a copy paste message.
Yeah.
But certainly, if you're sending a video like that, it's unique to your DM recipient.
Yeah, and by the way, with the audio, you have the same opportunity to decide whether to discard it or send it. So you're not
That's right.
obligated when you record to immediately get it sent. You actually have to click a button saying yes, go ahead and send it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it's interesting. Yesterday, I did see in my DMs, I saw a video with Hi Nancy, but everything else was scripted. And clearly it was,
Yeah.
the same message being sent to hundreds of people.
Yeah. You can
So
still do
did
the
I
same thing even
feel
video.
compelled to respond to it, Justin?
Mhm.
Uh, you
Yeah, you
know,
could still do the same. I tested a tool a couple years ago, where that was the case. You can take the video and you can customize it just enough,
yes.
and then the rest of it is a blank canvas that's
Yeah,
reused.
exactly.
And
So,
like any tactic, it might work in the beginning, but as people get to see it more and more, it'll start becoming noise.
yeah, it
So
does. It's noise.
ultimately, let's talk about. I want to take us back, Nancy, to perspectives about DMs, because just today I had a conversation with one of our clients, and about this topic this morning. We had a session, and I was asking, how's your DM game and things like that, and she said, "Well, I didn't get any leads or sales from it," and I reminded her, when you sell a B2B service or software, no one's going to buy from you on the first or second touch point. It's like going up in a bar and saying, "Will you marry me?" Right? The classic example. It takes time. Sales cycles are in the B2B world months long, if not sometimes years long, especially if you're dealing with $1 million sales products you're trying to sell. So, how should somebody think about the DMs? Um, and ultimately, right, DM to booking a call, what's the connection? What's the timeline? What are the steps, Nancy? Because you work with your audience. That's why you wear the hats. You know the different personality styles. Walk us through the steps and kind of a healthy view, if you will. How should we be thinking about the DMs?
I have one answer, and the word is relationships. It's about building relationships, whether it's B2B or B2C. And no matter how long the sales cycle is, it's about building a relationship. In fact, the longer the sales cycle, the more the relationship is necessary because it is going to take a while. But as many of you know, those of you who have been who know about my what I do, I help identify personality styles and I give them numbers. This is based upon research as to how long it takes or how many contacts someone needs before he or she can make decisions. And the numbers are 2, 4, 6, and 8. Hence, number 2 means the person needs one, at most 2 contacts to make up a decision and go forward. The 4 needs 4, 6, 8. You get it, right?
Mhm.
So when you're talking about messaging people in the message box, you want to have, as much as possible, messages geared for the personality style. Now, initially, it's too much work to know everybody's style. So you kind of want to have a screening question or a little bit of play, if I can use that word, exchange before you say to yourself, you know what? This is a prospect, and now I want to know what the style is so that I can absolutely individualize and customize what I'm saying to that individual. Now,
Mhm.
I start off, Justin, knowing that I'm looking for a certain ideal prospect profile.
Mhm.
And so I already have in mind who it is I'm trying to talk with. Hence, my message is geared towards that individual. And if the individual isn't that personality style, there's a good chance that that initial conversation dies, which is just fine because, again, I'm trying to, just like at a networking event, a live networking event, you can't talk to everybody. So you want to be selective about how you spend your time and who you're going to speak with and then follow up.
Which begs the question. I mean, this sounds like a lot of systematization, right? It's not a one and done. If you've got different types of personalities who need more touch points, that's where we need to think about DMs as a system and not a one and done. Can you speak to that at all? Because I certainly have my own, we're not necessarily in our company the best at this. We're actually building out our systems, but there needs to be a long-term view on DMs, not a one and done, because
Thank you.
most people will not respond unless they're one of those ones or twos. I forget the number you mentioned. Personality, like I am. I'm one of those folks. I'll respond to folks. And honestly, I've built a lot of quick partnerships from those types of folks. but there's only so many of those in the world. We need a plan. We need a plan,
We
Nancy. Can you
need a
speak to that?
plan. Yes, yes, yes. Well, and if you understand the sales statistics, 70% of sales take place after six, seven touch points.
Yeah.
Hence, you do need to be in it for the long run. And so, just like you're having a conversation with someone you may have met at a live event, you need to try start a conversation with that person in the DMs. And you don't want to do chit chatty stuff because that can be a time waster and kind of a signal of, wait a second, that this is a business platform. I don't want to talk about that
Yeah.
sort of thing. It's got to be business. And so it usually is a what, why sequence. You want to ask somebody a what. What do you value? What kind of prospect are you looking for? What's a good referral for you? Followed by a why. So when the person responds, it's like, why is that important? And so you're going deeper and you're getting someone to speak more fully about their answer. And by the way, be careful. Anytime you're asking questions, when you have question after question after question, it sounds like you're interrogating someone
Hmm.
and you're going to probably have a pushback. So you need to also temper the questions with some what I call interest statements, interest comments in between that shares a little bit about you, just the way you would be doing it if you were talking in person.
Hmm. Yeah, treating it like a conversation. It's a
Yes.
little bit of an art and a science, isn't it?
Yes.
Where you're trying to get the right information for you to determine if this is worthy of an actual call. So you're pre-vetting them in many ways in the DMs, using it as a pre-call tool. But you're also trying not to be too um, questiony, if that's a word, too interrogative. I think is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You put people on the defensive,
Hmm.
when you pelter them with question after question.
Hmm.
And so I will temper my questions with a phrase like, well, out of curiosity, or just out of interest. Or, in
Hmm.
other words, I want to give some kind of softening so that the question doesn't sound like I'm drilling you and you're
Hmm.
under arrest.
Hmm. Yeah. And we should have, let's talk about expectations again in terms of this method. Um, what can we expect, in terms of people responding to us, especially if somebody is new to this and they're trying DMs and they're spending time every day connecting with their network, sending connection requests, but also then following up? What kind of, if someone's doing this well, what kind of a response rate should they expect? Or maybe what kind of a success rate should they expect? Any numbers there that you're aware of from your side?
So initially, I understand if you're getting 30% to 40% of people accepting your connection requests, I believe that's a good percentage.
That's a
Does
good
that
number
agree
for
with?
us. Yeah.
Yeah, that agrees with yours as well. But then to actually engage people in conversations, I'd have to say of that group, half or less are probably going to be people that you really want to connect with in a
Hmm.
deeper way.
Hmm.
Again, you're nodding. It seems like
Yeah, absolutely. There's always going to be something where you find out after a deep, like we try right now in our process to vet folks before we connect. So we're really connecting with the best. That may not always be that way. Sometimes there's a time and place for automations and LinkedIn Sales Navigator where you don't get to vet folks. There's some nuances, is what I'm trying to say, to our ideal prospects. Right? They have to have speaking experience and things like that. And so sometimes when we go to connect with them and continue the conversation, we realize, oh, actually, they're not that great of a connection in terms of where they're at in business. Sometimes they're doing this on the side. Well, I'm looking for folks that are doing this full time, right? That's an example. And LinkedIn Sales Navigator doesn't allow you to show whether they do this full time or not, unless you would visit their profile. So there's various factors like that. But yeah, I was curious about, in terms of expectations, if I'm sending out 100 DMs a week, or 50 DMs a week or something like that, this is not something we're the experts at by any means. We're more of the content people, but we are trying to systematize this. What, in your experience, can you speak to that at all in terms of what a good booking rate should be?
so. Again, if you're sending out 100 requests and you're getting perhaps 30 people to accept your request, now of those 30, maybe um, 12 to 15 will engage with you and begin to have a dialogue.
Mhm.
And again, you need to think through the frequency. Like, am I doing this daily? Am I doing it every other day? Am I doing it once a week? Because again, time is precious. It's
Yeah.
not something you can replenish. So you need to weigh heavily how much time you're going to invest and the payoff. And
Mhm.
but however, if you have done a good job of screening, and I think that's such an important point,
Right.
Justin, for us to revisit, that if you have taken the time initially to reach out to a better quality of prospect, then you are already on a better path than the majority of people in LinkedIn who just que sera,
Spray and pray.
whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
So you're now on a better path. And as you talk to that 12 to 15 group of people. Again, thinking how quickly or how slowly you want to nurture those relationships.
Mhm.
Perhaps of that group, you can expect three of them.
Mhm.
Uh, Potentially to be people that eventually become appointments on your calendar so
Mhm.
that you want to talk with them, because that is the goal, folks.
Mhm.
When someone you're talking to in your direct messages, the goal is to eventually have a video meeting
Mhm.
whereby the two of you can talk in real time and get a feeling and a flavor for each other's, not only what you do, but the personality
Yeah.
style and whether this is a compatible person to work with.
Yeah, it's a it's a sobering number to think, well, if I reached out to 100 people, 3 to 4 will become calls, but that's because everybody's busy, everybody's doing their thing. So this is really a numbers game. We're talking this is business. In business, you have to accept there's certain things you have to do, and this is one of those things that you either spend the time doing it, or to cover our last point, you delegate, right? So, what is a good? I'm curious of your opinion on this, Nancy, because I have my own. What are some things you should be delegating, and some things you should not be delegating when it comes to your connections and your messaging?
So you can clearly delegate the initial part, the connection request to someone. And as you said, you work with your VA, you
Yeah.
go over the criteria. I also have a VA, and we go over the criteria as to who it is that's a good prospect for me and what I'm trying to accomplish. And then we do review it. We meet on that regularly. You can also, the initial messaging can also be delegated to a VA,
Mhm.
especially if you have gone over, and I've created some scripts of
Mm.
questions to ask and information to share so that there is a flow. And it's
Mhm.
when it gets to the area where the person has identified, there is an issue that I want to discuss, or I think we could do business together because we're synergistic. It's at that point that I would take over, and that I don't delegate my appointments. They're on my calendar and I meet with people individually.
Yeah.
Same
That's
with
the
you?
same experience, the same
Yeah.
experience, and we're just starting to get our program off the ground. There's probably about a dozen different, scripts, if you will, or templates I've used to varying degrees of success. I'm not a detailed numbers guy, so I wish I had, like, a breakdown of saying, "Oh, this one got us the most." I can tell you at a glance, though, the one that does the one I shared earlier with the partner, that was the most successful, but that also has to do with we have a compelling offer that most folks in marketing and PR have never seen, so it makes for a really compelling call and they want to make that happen. But in terms of leads and things like that, it's all over the place. We've tried all sorts of stuff and we're getting there. We're dialing in our messaging. But yes, ultimately, it's up to me to take over the conversation once
Yeah.
a
And we do
couple
the
things have been shared.
same.
Yeah.
We also we keep looking at the numbers when we convene, and we look at the numbers of acceptance and numbers of people we engage with, and we tweak our messaging.
Mm.
Again, I know the personality style that is best for me, and
Yeah.
so we're able to create messages and follow up that is in alignment with that style.
Which is a totally important task, and that's that connecting with the person, not just the profile, right? And I think
Yes.
that's super, super underrated. When we just said it's about the numbers, yes, but you have to connect with the person, not just their profile. You have to look at the heart, not just the data when you're doing this. And that's where your expertise comes in, Nancy. And that's what we're going to be talking about a lot of in the workshop. How do you actually build a connection quickly with the different types of personalities that exist on LinkedIn and beyond LinkedIn? So you referenced those four personalities, those four main buckets of people that you've studied, and you have different types of approaches for. We're going to be talking about that next week in our workshop. We're going to be talking about how to create content because a lot of people get stuck on that. Even I've seen even fantastic small teams or even medium sized teams that don't have a marketing team or that have a small marketing team. They just don't have a consistent stream of content. We're going to be talking about how to do that effectively. I'll share about the content buddy system and the sawdust method. So these very, very practical methods to create a stream of content. So you talk about personalities, deeper connections, more sales calls, how to create a steady stream of content. And that is next week, Wednesday, I believe. And that's $149 last I checked. It is a paid workshop. It's an hour and a half with you and me, but people are going to walk away with quite a few bonuses. Do you want to talk about a couple of those, Nancy?
Well, they're going to identify with some clarity their ideal client
That's right.
profile. And that is, think about that. When you know who is that ICP, now all your marketing messages can be pinpointed directly to that person. And that's what I was mentioning about the direct messages. When you know that style, you can start off by zeroing in and finding more people who are alike, and therefore investing your time more judiciously, smartly, so that you're not working harder, you're working smarter.
That's right. That's what this is all about, folks. So we're going to give you some tools to learn to work harder, opposite, smarter, not harder, because we all know there's plenty of ways to just spin your wheels on LinkedIn. Plenty of ways. And plenty of people have burned out trying to create content without a system, trying to connect with people and hearing crickets. So this workshop is going to give you some very rubber hits the road, practical steps. You're going to walk away with a plan for reaching out to your ideal prospects, and you're going to walk away with a plan for your content. Heck, you're even going to walk away with some video content you will have created right there in the session. The easy way. This is not going to be a scripted thing. This is not going to be in any way something that is awkward. It's going to be conversational. And so please do join us. It's on Wednesday, March 6th, I believe, let me double check the time, at 11 a.m. Central. And $149. You can find the link in the descriptions for this event, and or DM us. We can certainly get you that information. Nancy, anything you want to end us on here?
I'm excited. And for those of you who are contemplating, if you are on LinkedIn and you know this is your playground, it's my playground, 1 billion members, it's their playground, and you know your prospect is here, you need a strategy. Don't just wing it.
Right.
Plant the seeds, nurture the seeds, bring them into your direct messaging, and that's how you're going to book more calls
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Nancy. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
to your sales success. My goodness,
Okay.
the workshop is happening next week. I thought we